My name is Phelan Orla, better known as Catsbane, and you're listening to Tale of the Manticore.
The following podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Tale of the Manticore, Season 3. Like the creature from which it takes its name, Tale of the Manticore is a mashup, a crossbreeding between two different species of storytelling. Here you will find the unpredictability of old-school paper and dice games with the storycraft of a dark fantasy novel. No character is sacred, and none will be spared if the dice decide their fate is at hand. According to lore, the tail of a manticore is barbed with cruel iron spikes. There will be much pain in the days ahead. Last time on Tale of the Manticore. In Chapter 37, the companions draw closer to their destination. They seem to have crossed some kind of threshold, for the land they are now in seems more highly infused with magic. The companions encounter strange creatures and have vivid dreams. Dureni in particular has a troubling one. His dream is really more of an unwanted memory. In it, he relives the experience of being commanded to abandon his former mentor, the Old Crow, to a group of pursuing orcs. Dureni is still haunted by this event and wonders if he should have disobeyed orders and fought alongside the Elder Elf. The story proceeds with the scene in which the companions go off foraging and encounter a lethal monster that looks like a six-legged panther with barbed tentacles growing from its back. When it fights, this creature, called a displacer beast, seems to shift around in space, making it hard to hit. It might never have become hostile, but for the presence of Flicker. It turns out that blink dogs are the natural enemy of displacer beasts. The battle itself is furious but short. In it, the PCs take some injuries, but ultimately slay the beast. I managed to carve out the nature of that last encounter from my mythic event meaning, adjourn advice. The idea being that Achillea and Fairwind's insistence on speaking, when they should have been traveling in silence, caught the creature's attention and led to their being ambushed. So this episode's first job is to roll up a new one, using percentile dice. 14 and 99. That's Abandon Anger. Interesting. I don't have an immediate application, but it does seem promising. One more thing before I begin the narrative. Fairwind will cast Cure Light Wounds on, I think it'll be Flicker, actually. A d6 plus 1 of new hit points is on the way. Okay, Flicker is healed for 4 points. Chapter 38, Part 1. Day 34. 1 day from the destination. Afternoon. Mythic event meaning. Abandon Anger. Party status. Achillea, 13 of 13 hit points. Cord, 18 of 24. Dureni, 16 of 16. Tentir, 19 of 19. Fairwind, 17 of 26. Flicker, 15 of 16. Supplies. The companions have 8 portions of food remaining. Spells available. Achillea can cast Enlarge, Message, Glitter Dust, and Detect Evil. Cord can cast Entangle, Slow Poison, Hold Animal, and Speak with Plants. Fairwind can cast Protection from Evil. Fairwind took his hand away from Flicker's side. Amazingly, the blink dog's wound was gone, replaced by a patch of new pink skin.
Oh, stop that! Stop that!
Laughed the cleric as Flicker practically jumped on him, licking his hands and wagging her tail.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Dureni was glad to see that the animal was well, but he did not share the cleric's good humor. He turned back to his examination of the dead creature. It was as long as he was tall and packed with muscle, covered in sleek black fur. Its 6 legs and the pair of violet tentacles were extremely discomfiting.
What on Marith is this thing?
He asked to nobody in particular.
I've heard stories about mountain cats that can grow to about this size.
Offered Tentir.
This is no mountain cat.
Muttered Dureni.
It must be a creature of magic.
Opined Achillia.
Fairwind mentioned before that he thinks we've crossed some kind of boundary and entered a new land where magic is stronger. I bet you can feel it. I can.
Whatever it is,
Said Dureni, not looking up from the corpse.
I hope its kind are rare and solitary. I have no wish to meet another one. You saw how it went right for Flicker.
Achillia nodded gravely.
They went at each other as if they were old enemies.
She agreed.
But perhaps we should get moving, in case there are any more of them.
Luckily, there are no more of them, at least not around here. In fact, there will be no further events on Day 34, and that means it's time to make the hex scroll rolls for Day 35. Day 35 is special, by the way, because this is the day the PCs are scheduled to arrive at Odok-Zygog's home, if they can find it, that is. Well, I'll get to that part in a minute. Let's cover the basics first. For weather. A 1. Looks like we're about to experience some truly bad weather, a storm, and a big one. A real opening up of the heavens. Next is the roll for Stumble Upon. An 8 means no result there. For Foraging. A 4 is a failure. I guess we can blame the weather for that. How about a Wandering Encounter? On a D6? Another 4. That means there is not, and once again I'm sure it's on account of the storm. It'll be severe enough to drive every living thing to ground. Chapter 38. Part 2. Day 35. Still 1 day from their destination. Afternoon. Mythic event meaning: Abandon Anger. Party status: Achillia, 13 of 13 hit points. Cord, 19 out of 24 after receiving 1 point of natural healing. Dureni, 16 of 16. Tentir, 19 of 19. Fairwind, 18 of 26 after receiving 1 point of natural healing. Flicker, 16 of 16 after receiving 1 point of natural healing. Supplies. The companions have 3 portions of food remaining. Spells available. Achillia can cast Enlarge, Message, Glitter Dust, and Detect Evil. Cord can cast Entangle, Slow Poison, Hold Animal, and Speak with Plants. Fairwind can cast Cure Light Wounds and Protection from Evil. The companions awoke that morning to a sky that was thick with brooding, iron-colored clouds. Moods were sober, and conversation was practically non-existent as they began what should have been the final triumphant day in their quest to find the historian, Odok-Zygog. If the silence pleased Dureni, he did not show it. In fact, the elven hunter was in a particularly sullen mood. He had relived the memory of his abandonment of the old crow a 3rd time in his dreams the night before, and had woken feeling totally unrested and unhappy. Every so often, the elf realized he was scowling and had to make an effort to relax the muscles in his face. Still, the negative thoughts returned, like phantoms. Flicker was responsible for the attack by the cat-like monster on the previous day, and she was an extra mouth to feed. Achillia was headstrong and selfish. The quest to save her family member had put his brother's life in jeopardy more than once, and caused him to become cursed. Fairwind couldn't keep his mouth shut and was scaring all the game away at a time when their supply of food was almost gone. Dureni told himself that these bad thoughts were mere visitors. They would stay a while in his mind and then leave. After all, he didn't really harbor such poor opinions of his companions. But today, some of the visiting thoughts were poor guests that overstayed their welcome and refused to depart. Wisely, the elf kept to himself and tried to concentrate on putting one foot in front of the other. Like on the day before, Robin came and went. Upon each return, the little stuffed bird would perch on Cord's shoulder and twitter into his painted ear. To anyone watching, it would look as though the bird was scouting ahead and making reports. This is exactly what was taking place. The connection between the construct and the taxidermy bird was richer now than it had ever been before. Cord learned that there was no food in the woods to the north, that the way east was free of danger, and that, in general, there was no sign of any man-made structures anywhere. Robin also fretted about the coming rain. As for that, everyone could sense a storm was on its way. The temperature had dropped, and there was a certain smell in the air that presaged rain. The weather came on slowly, beginning in the afternoon, with soft, scattered drops that tapped gently on the treetops and moss-covered rocks. Then came a breeze that stiffened into a cool wind. It tugged at branches and bent the tall grass. The rain came heavier now, falling in relentless sheets on top of the companions' heads. The ground became impregnated with water, and soon the rain was sluicing down slope and valley in muddy streams. Above, the sky had darkened to purple. Distant thunder rumbled and then cracked overhead. Forks of lightning flashed between the trees, turning wet trunks into momentary columns of silver. The unhappy companions dashed ahead, looking for shelter, and their boots squelched in the sodden earth.
Over there!
Cried Tentir, pointing at something through the slanting rainfall. His eyes had always been the sharpest. The younger brother had spotted the hollowed-out bole of an oak that was tall, but not so tall as to be a potential target for lightning. There, barely covered in the cramped, woody hollow, the companions huddled and shivered, soaked to the skin. Around them, the tempest raged, battering trees and earth alike. Both of my previous seasons ran for exactly 76 episodes, so one might suppose it follows that this episode is the halfway mark for Season 3. That might be true, or not. If I remember right, I was kind of aiming for number 75 to be the finale in Season 1, hoping for a nice round number, but was unable to make that happen without rushing the story. In Season 2, ending on number 76 was pure coincidence. I definitely remember that. For this season, the plan is to just keep the story going until it naturally inclines towards a resolution, and to trust my gut to recognize when that starts to happen, so it could run longer or shorter or be the same again. One advantage of a longer campaign is that I get to experience and explore higher-level play, so I might make an effort to make that happen, but not at the expense of story or pacing. With all that in mind, I think the time is right to broaden this story, and it's only recently that I realized how to do it. But let me ease into that by way of a Between the Lines segment. It's been a while since I've done one of those. Between the Lines. The Highlands and the Golden Path. Fairwind and Achillea both believe that they have crossed a boundary and entered a region where magic is stronger. It's hard to deny that this is the case. Consider recent encounters: a giant forest troll, a dryad, and a displacer beast, all confronted in the lands between Doroth and the mountains. Furthermore, the PCs have been having much more vivid and meaningful dreams since crossing into these parts. So, what's so special about this place? A lot, it turns out. You might have noticed that a kind of convergence is happening here in the Highlands. Coming together in this area, we had the ill-fated Dorothi and the historian Odog-Zygog. Which of these arrived first is as yet unknown, in case you were wondering. Of course, the PCs have also been drawn here. And finally, there's Fimgrin Atresh and his Iron Tower that disappears and reappears in new locations, but is definitely moving in this direction. For all parties except for the PCs, the reason for coming here is the same. Everyone is looking for something called the Golden Path. What is this Golden Path, and why is it so sought after? The Highlands are sacred to the goddess Ahea, who in my campaign is the goddess of magic. Here, magic is stronger, more chaotic, and more elemental. This explains all the strange dreams and strange creatures. Legends are full of magical places and boundaries, ley lines, magic nodes, and geomantic formations. The Golden Path, whether it is a metaphorical or a real path, leads to the most potent of any of these concentrations of magical energies, because it leads to the first temple of Ahea, and ultimately to the manifestation of the goddess herself. Knowing that, is it any wonder why so many people are looking for it, and why they do so in secret? For a wizard or a cleric of Ahea, the search for the Golden Path is the ultimate quest. Odogzygok is a historian who has spent his entire life in research, looking for clues to its location. The Dorothi had the first scroll of Gallandal, which provided enough information to get them close, but that group ultimately failed in their task. The PCs now carry the first scroll. I wonder, whatever happened to the second? Chapter 38. Part 3. Day 35. Afternoon. On a hillside, less than 24 miles from where the party was taking shelter from the raging storm, the traveling Tower of Iron sat on a hill. Battered by the storm from the outside, inside it was warm and quiet. Very quiet. Fimgrim Atresh shifted uncomfortably in his chair and set down his cup of bitter tea, looking across the table at Bellario. The little gnome was chewing his lip and frowning at his plate of food while pushing bits of meat around on his plate without eating. Fimgrin's natural impulse would be to make a joke or offer some kind of comfort, but at this moment he found his natural mirth impotent in the face of the other's mood. Before the meal, Fim had heard Bellario all the way from the bottom floor of their tower, bellowing curses great in both volume and vulgarity. Presently, Bellario looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed.
"We must return to the Pale,"
he said. His voice sounded tired and heavy.
"Today."
"Surely not so soon,"
Fim had said, putting down his fork with a bit of cheese still speared on its tip. He tried to argue, and then, when that didn't work, he tried bargaining, but there was nothing he could say to change the gnome's mind.
"Very well,"
he said at last with a sigh. There was a price to pay every time they entered and every time they left the Pale. Ethereal travel did not come without a cost. Bellario didn't seem to care whether or not Fim approved of the decision. He pushed away his untasted food.
"After you clean up, I want you to practice what I taught you yesterday. By the time I return, you will have recreated this meal for me. Sight, smell, and taste, using a spectral force incantation."
"Yes, master,"
Fim had replied.
"As you wish."
"Until then, do not disturb me. I have work to do. There are yet more secrets to be coaxed from that damned scroll."
Bellario squeezed his tiny hands into fists, and the knuckles turned white. On one of his fingers, a silver ring that with a black and gold gem caught the light and twinkled.
"But I will have them."
Chapter 38. Part 4. Day 35. Within 1 day of their destination. Night. Mythic event meaning: abandon anger. Party status. The party status is unchanged. The rain continued to hammer down all around the companions as they huddled inside the hollow bowl of the oak. They were pressed so tightly together, it was hard to tell where one person began and the other ended. Despite this, the shelter was not sufficient to keep them dry, and before long, those who wore such things could feel water in their clothes and in their boots. It had gotten into their packs, too.
"The Massabel is ruined.
Said Dureni miserably.
We're out of food."
Dureni wasn't really that upset about the Massabel. It had so little remaining that food was about to become a big problem regardless. No, Dureni's troubles were more of the spiritual variety. He was certain he'd be forced to relive the experience of losing the old crow again in his dreams that night. Recently, he couldn't stop wondering, might he have been able to save his former mentor if only he'd made a different choice? Thinking back, he was fairly sure he'd heard no more than 3 orcish voices during the pursuit. But he would never know. The old crow was dead. He was alive. What might have been was a fool's refrain. Sometime after midnight, the storm passed, and the clouds overhead parted to reveal a blurry yellow half-moon suspended in the firmament. Exhausted, most of the companions simply curled up on the ground and tried to find sleep, not even bothering to unpack their bedrolls. Before Fairwind turned in, he put his hands on Cord and said a prayer of healing.
Thank you, my friend, for always keeping watch over us,
he said when the prayer was done. Cord had creaked and bowed in gratitude and acknowledgement, and then walked off a ways to sit his nightly vigil with Robin on his shoulder. Since the PCs were delayed by the storm, I need to make one more set of hex crawl rolls for day 36 before they can reach their destination, or at least the general vicinity of it. For weather, I've got a 19. Looks like after the storm breaks, the weather becomes gorgeous. For stumble upon, a 16 means no result there. Foraging with Cord's help? A 1 is a success, and not a day too soon either, as the PCs currently have no food remaining. So far so good, but here's the roll that really matters. The real cost of that storm was not that the PCs lost the last of their food. The real cost was that it delayed them, and so they'll need to endure an extra wandering encounter check. A 5 or a 6 on a d6 will indicate there is one. Ah, nuts. I knew it. That's a 5. There's one more roll to make, and that's Fairwind's Cure Light Wounds spell of the night before. As a result of the prayer, Cord will regain 4 hit points. Chapter 38, Part 5. Day 36. Within 1 day of their destination. Morning. Mythic event meaning. Abandoned anger. Party status. Achillea. 13 of 13 hit points. Cord. 24 of 24. Dureni. 16 of 16. Tentir. 19 of 19. Fairwind. 19 of 26, after receiving 1 point of natural healing. Flicker. 16 of 16. Supplies. The companions have no food remaining. Spells available. Achillea can cast Enlarge, Message, Glitter Dust, and Detect Evil. Cord can cast Entangle, Slow Poison, Hold Animal, and Speak with Plants. Fairwind can cast Cure Light Wounds and Protection from Evil. In the morning, the companions awoke to find that the rain had stopped, and Dureni was gone. At first there was some mild alarm, but Cord, who'd never slept, had seen the elven hunter get up before the others and walk away, gesturing in such a fashion as to make it clear he did not want to be followed. Cord hadn't thought much of it. For those who were not made of wood, the need for occasional access to privacy was normal. The fact that Dureni had been gone for over an hour had only just started to concern him when the others had woken up and noticed the absence.
Do you think we ought to go looking for him?
Asked Fairwind.
I hope he's all right.
Said Achillea.
Perhaps we should.
Let me go alone.
Tentir offered, easily guessing the meaning of their exchange.
My brother sometimes does this. I think I know what's bothering him.
You don't suppose he's still angry with me, do you?
Asked Achillea, scratching Flicker behind the ears and looking down at the blink dog meaningfully. Dureni had not made his disdain for the animal a secret.
No. If I'm right, this doesn't have anything to do with you, or with any of us. Sometimes Dureni just needs time alone, that's all. To think and sort through a few things from his past.
Tentir walked off in the direction Cord had pointed, leaving the others behind. Once he was gone, Achillea put her hands behind her head and, in one fluid motion, peeled off her wet shirt. Fairwind was facing the other way and didn't notice until he turned around while asking,
And what did Tentir say about
The sight of Achillea, naked from the waist up, made him quickly turn away.
I'm sorry.
Sorry for what?
Asked Achillea, not understanding.
Tentir thinks Dureni needs some time alone to think, that's all. To be honest, he has looked very tired, and lately he's been very irritable, which is not really like him. Anyway, it gives us time to dry our clothes.
She flung her shirt over a low branch and then stripped off her pants and undergarments. These she hung beside her shirt. As she worked, Flicker gamboled around her, making a nuisance of herself. Fairwind, deeply uncomfortable, found various places to dry their bedrolls and packs before he, too, hung up his damp, ragged robe. His small clothes, he decided, would stay on for the sake of propriety. Intentionally averting his gaze from Achillea's naked form, the cleric pretended to be lost in thought while scanning the distance where sloping hillsides folded into gullies and valleys. All around them, the forest was fresh and bright, and birdsong filled the air. Behind him, he could hear Achillea telling Cord that he seemed to have changed once again, and she counted off 4 tiny sprouts that hadn't been on his body before.
Perhaps I should go and speak to him. With your help, of course.
Fairwind suddenly said, standing by while others needed counsel and support, not to mention Achillea's nakedness, was making him feel uncomfortable.
Let's just give them some time,
Was Achillea's reply. Her tone was light, but nonetheless did not invite argument.
Yes, of course.
Fairwind returned his attention to the beauty of the landscape. Miles off, he could just make out the telltale sparkle of water. A lake, perhaps. With some luck, he mused, today they would reach their destination and finally meet the famous historian, Odok Zygog. Happy Halloween, everyone. Hey, I admit this was not the spookiest episode of Manticore ever, but hey, Bellario the Gnome was pretty creepy, right? And you know what else is scary? The amount of support I get from my awesome listeners. For recommending the show online and to friends, for liking and reposting episode announcements on social media, for those who've picked up a Tale of the Manticore t-shirt at beararts.store or one of my offerings on DriveThruRPG, I'm very grateful. Those ratings and reviews are always helpful too. My thanks once again. Today I'd like to read a review from Apple Podcasts left by Lord Kimchi. Lord Kimchi writes, So I was traveling solo and needed something to listen to. And because I recently got back into D&D after decades off, I searched and found this. I was instantly hooked. That was 2 weeks ago, and now I'm on Season 2, Episode 40. I've laughed and cried and shouted at the narrator. I recommend this to anyone interested in great storytelling and solo gameplay. Thanks very much, Lord Kimchi. Solo traveling? Got back into D&D after decades off? That sounds familiar. I'm so happy that you found the show. Actually, I'm also excited to hear that if someone searches for a good D&D podcast, that they will come across my own. That is really good to hear. Anyway, I truly appreciate the review, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Season 2, and give this season a try as well. Tale of the Manticore might be a witch's brew of ingredients, but its not-so-secret special ingredient is its cast of voice actors. Today's episode features the core cast of Kai Allen, Kevin Berenger, and David Cooper, playing Dureni, Tentir, and Fairwind. As usual, all of them nailed their parts. Joining us once again, in the role of Imgrim Atrush, is Ian Woodworth of the Undercommon Taste podcast. And returning to the show and bringing us the voice of Bellario the Gnome is the fantastic Hodag RPG. Thanks to all 5 actors in this episode. For those curious to learn more about Tale of the Manticore, I keep a blog where I post all kinds of show and RPG-related stuff, like sketches, maps, tables, crafts, and show notes. You can find it at taleofthemanticore.com. To get in touch with me, I'm at soloroleplayersnetwork.com, taleofthemanticore.bluesky.social, Tale of the Manticore podcast on Instagram, or taleofthemanticore@gmail.com. I always love to hear from you, so if you have a question or you have something to say, shoot me a note. With that said, have a spooktacular Halloween, everyone, and I'll see you on the next episode of Tale of the Manticore. It's the story where chaos rolls.